You are about to see my very first round of the 2025 season because I live in Canada and we can finally be outdoors again. And I'm going to let you know that there are not a lot of great swings that you're going to see in this video, but I still break 90 despite my opening tee shot looking like that. The reason being is that I did not use a driver. I know that the beginning of the season is all about patience. So I used a 3-wood knowing that my miss would still be in play, and then I promptly thin a wedge shot straight over the green. But because this is my first hole of the season, I think it's really important to just stay patient and not beat yourself up. So I just pitch it onto the green, I 2-putt for a bogey, and that's a pretty stress-free opening hole, even having hit a terrible opening shot. I pull out the 3-wood again, and this time it does look really nice because I thin hook it around that tree line, and I did take a peek, but it actually ended up in the fairway when I thought it was going to be the rough again. And as I did with the first hole, I promptly hit a terrible second shot. But this is a par 5, so I have a wedge towards the green that I hit a little bit firmer than I thought. One of the adjustments with getting back outdoors again is remembering how the ball actually flies, not just on a simulator. That leaves me a 2-putt for my very first par of the season. This third hole is a very tricky dogleg left that I'm setting up with my first driver swing of the year, and I'm trying to hit a slice, but I ended up just going straight at my target line. And it made it almost through all of the trees on the far side, and it got kind of wedged with this log that unfortunately you couldn't really see on the shot. So I had to take an unplayable, just popped it back into the fairway, and now I'm hoping to get close enough to try and save a bogey, but I went a little bit firm on this approach shot again. So now the goal here is just to 2-putt to take a double bogey, and thankfully I do just that, which means I am now at a bogey pace through 3 holes. And if your goal is to break 90, this is kind of the way the round should look. It's not going to be a lot of flashy play, it's just keeping the ball in play as best as possible. So despite the fact I even had a drop, I'm still on a decent pace. And now when you get to a par 3, just play it as simply as possible. If you can just get on the green in regulation and 2-putt for par, then it really levels off some of the other bogey holes that you're going to have. And sometimes you'll even get fortunate that after a straightforward par 3, you have a short par 5. So I pull out driver again. It does stay in play. I can see me pointing a bit to the left there, and it just stayed into the right rough. You can see so far I'm really not hitting fairways today, and that is going to be the norm of this round. So I've got a 7-iron that I'm hitting down the hill, pulled it a little bit to the right, and here's a close-up of a 69-degree wedge that I recently won at an indoor tournament through Albatross Indoor Golf, and I thought it was going to go up high enough that it would sit pretty soft on the green, but it bounced pretty far, and I'm going to have to get used to how that club actually plays. But anyways, I set up a putt, I leave it quite short, and just sneak in that par putt. So that's back-to-back pars, and that's a really nice way to try and maintain my score. And now right back to traditional breaking 90 style golf. I'm just going to give some strokes right back because this was not a very well executed tee shot. I pushed it off to the left and I had to just eat my medicine here. There was no way to try to get to the green. So I punched it out and I was even just a little bit too firm, which left me this really awkward low punch that I was trying to do to get to the green. Really didn't execute that well. It hit some rocks, went past the green. I forgot to record that shot. Now you can just see some frustrated putting here. That results in a really nasty triple bogey, and I've just got to move on to the next hole. So one of the most important things that you can be doing if you are going to try and break 90 is you need to limit holes like that. You certainly don't want them to compound, and I'm on the right track here by having that tee shot find the fairway, and this is a decent approach towards the green, but it ends up just a little bit short. And unfortunately, the putting of the last hole was still irking me, and I left this putt way short. That was not even close. So unfortunately, I had a little aggression on this putt, and it just hammered that hole, but stayed nice and close. There's another 3-putt, and that time it's only a double bogey. So you certainly want to stop those if you're going to be breaking 90. And you're going to see that despite the fact I've had a couple of really terrible holes, I've already told you 90 is broken in this round. And you're seeing me just kind of fight my way through things. So I pulled another tee shot. I have to punch this one low, and it's a par 4. So again, I'm leaving myself in a really tricky position here, trying to get close enough that maybe I can just 2-putt for another bogey. If I got really lucky, par might be in order, but once I know that I'm punching a shot out, I'm just playing for bogey at that point, and I find that's the best way to kind of keep that score a little bit lower. If I would have been by that tree and tried to get really aggressive going for the green, I might have just ended up in the creek. So not a bad bogey to take there, and now we get to the 9th hole, which is a par 3. Nice view over this water. I hit a really good shot here, and I ended up about 20 feet or so away from the pin. And I have a really big swinging putt here, so I'm trying to just settle my putting down. Really fighting to find the speed. This is one of those things, especially going from indoor back to outdoor again, and that one drops. So there we go. We're at a 44 despite a couple terrible holes. So for these final 9 holes, I might just step away a little bit from this narration and you can just sort of watch how some of the holes unfold. You should hopefully be getting a grasp of the relatively straightforward way I was trying to think about the round today. Top priority is to keep the ball in play. Also want to minimize those blow-up holes, and I certainly want to keep the putting down. No more of those 3 putts on this back 9. So you can see I kept the ball in play off the tee. I have a good approach onto this green. I'm on in 2 for this par 4, and although the goal is to minimize the 3 putts, I accidentally send this ball well past the hole, and you're going to see it's going to take 2 more putts to get in. So this is a bogey to start, but just watch how I don't let that phase me. If you're trying to just break 90, this is the mindset you need. Take the good with the bad, take the bad with the good. Just enjoy the game of golf. And there are a couple of pretty straightforward bogeys, and now as you can see the sun is setting on the round and in the sky, and unfortunately that drive is terrible. And as bad as it was, I did get fortunate that it rolled a little bit further than I anticipated, so I'm just up at the near crest of this ridge here, and I have to just punch it around towards the green, but you can see me taking a look to the side because I have just enough room to try and slice it a little bit. So you can see it just sort of trundle up over that hill, and I got just to the edge of the green, so I actually have a shot here on this par 4 to try and get this close and maybe even save a par out of that. Unfortunately, I read this ridge a little bit wrong. I thought that because it was starting so hard to the left at the beginning, it was going to keep doing that, but I probably should have taken a better look at the lower ridge and realized that it was actually moving towards the water. So it kind of did a little S pattern. I didn't leave myself a very good chance to save the par, so I tap in another little bogey, and then I have an absolutely terrible display of ball handling. Oh my, those are the little nuances of golf that you just start to lose when you are in a long off season in Canada. But thankfully the next hole is a par 3, and I'm trying to just get on the green and 2-putt for par, but I pushed it a little bit off to the left. But to break 90 you need to be able to make some saves, so there's a nice little chip on, tap in for the par, and I move on to some back-to-back par 5s. Now this is a really tricky hole. You can kind of see the trees that I'm zooming in on up there. It makes this fairway really tight. So I decided to try a little stinger shot here, but you'll see Zach Radford, I am not. I actually hit a really good 5-iron. It just did not go nearly as low as I was anticipating, so I need to work on that a little bit. Probably didn't keep my hands low enough. And unfortunately I hit a better stinger when I'm not trying to with this 3-wood, but because this is a par 5, it rolled up there far enough that I have a chance to get on the green. Not a really good camera shot here. You can see me kind of running up over this hill to try and see where it was. Just a bit short of the green, but thankfully that is a relatively straightforward 2-putt for par, and I move on to the second of back-to-back par 5s. I pull out the driver for this one, and I pull it a little bit off to the right, and I was trying to just have a little 9-iron here to get back into the fairway. I have a beautiful backdrop, and I'm really left with a tricky shot trying to go around these trees though, but I thought I had enough with the 9, and unfortunately it did not turn. It just went straight at my target line.
Well, good news, it's alive. Bad news, that's where it is. So I'm gonna have to go way over there.
As you have seen a couple of times, this is just a moment of me taking my medicine. Right? One of the best ways to make sure you're breaking 90 is not trying to play hero. I just punched that back out into play, so now I'm just hoping to get on the green. And if it's lucky to get close enough to the pin to maybe try and save a par, great. But the really mindset here is just get on the green and 2-putt for bogey. Another really nice view. I just love this shot. When the sun is going down at the Knollwood new course, this back 9 just looks beautiful. And I do have a really good shot here. It goes a little bit past the pin, but this is a chance where I can 2-putt for the bogey. So I'm just lagging one up here, and it took me a long time, but I'm finally getting the roll of these greens. So there's the bogey that I desired, and we go to the 18th hole, where I actually hit my nicest drive of the day. This is the cut shot that I like to try and hit. I'm just trying to find that feel again. Dog legs down the hill and to the left. Playing partner like that shot, and I'm trying to capitalize on it here. I couldn't be in a better position. The pin is right in the middle of the green, but I just kind of thinned this 60 degree and sent it way to the back. So I was a little bit frustrated here. It would have been nice to end on a par, but I know that that is not likely because of this back corner position. I'm really left in a bit of a lurch here. So I only walked over with my 52 degree wedge trying to chip it close, and it was just terrible. So I didn't want to bother going to get my putter. So I'm just trying to lag this thing up there. And it's sad that one of my nicest putts of the day was with a wedge, and I just pool shot that thing in there for the bogey. And that ends my first round of the 2025 season. So if your goal is to break 90 in golf more this season, hopefully you learned a little bit from this video. You do not need to play well. You can hit a lot of bad shots. You can make a lot of bad putts. The goal is just keep that ball in play, make the smart decisions, and play conservative when you need to. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.